A medical station on the edge. My name is Zixthar, and I have served as Chief Medical Administrator of Galactic Health Station Meridian 5 for 37 cycles. I thought I had seen every medical crisis the galaxy could throw at us. Plague outbreaks on colony worlds, viral mutations that jumped between species, even the infamous Keltar syndrome that killed in hours. But nothing prepared me for the day a human doctor walked into my quarantine zone and changed everything we thought we knew about medicine, protocol, and what it means to save lives. The outbreak begins. It started 3 days ago. A transport ship arrived from the Outer Rim carrying refugees from a war-torn system. Standard procedure: health screening, decontamination, temporary housing while we process their asylum requests. Everything by the book. Then patient 0 collapsed in the holding area. Within 6 hours, 43 beings showed symptoms. Within 12 hours, we had 200 infected. Within 24 hours, the death count reached 50 and climbing fast. The disease was unlike anything in our medical databases. It attacked the respiratory system with brutal efficiency, causing organ failure in multiple species simultaneously. Greshkin, Voltari, Nexians, even the usually resistant Corthax, all fell sick at the same rate. We implemented full quarantine protocols immediately. The infected were sealed in Section 7. Medical staff wore Level 5 hazard suits. No one entered or left without triple decontamination procedures. And still, people died. The human arrives. Dr. Sarah Chen arrived on a supply shuttle 2 days into the crisis. She was part of a United Earth Medical Corps response team, though she arrived alone. The rest of her team delayed by some bureaucratic nonsense at the jump gate. I remember my first impression of her. Small, even by human standards. She barely reached my mid-thorax. Dark hair pulled back in what humans call a ponytail. Eyes that looked tired, but sharp, missing nothing. "Administrator Zixthar," she said, extending her hand in that peculiar human greeting ritual. "Dr. Sarah Chen, UEMC. I'm here to help with the outbreak." I touched her hand briefly, noting how warm human skin felt compared to my own chitinous exterior. "Dr. Chen, I appreciate Earth's response, but I must be honest, we are losing this battle. The infection rate is 93%. Mortality rate is 41% and rising. We have lost 17 medical staff despite full protective protocols." She nodded, already pulling up data on a portable terminal. "I've reviewed your reports during transit. Unknown pathogen, rapid progression, multi-species infection. Have you isolated the vector? Airborne transmission, possibly fluid contact as well. We cannot determine the exact mechanism. What treatment protocols have you tried?" I listed them. Broad-spectrum antivirals, immune system boosters, oxygen supplementation, cellular regeneration therapy. Everything in the Galactic Medical Database. Nothing worked. Breaking protocol. Dr. Chen spent 4 hours reviewing our data, examining tissue samples, studying the progression charts. Then she did something that made my internal organs seize with horror. She removed her hazard suit. "Dr. Chen," I practically shrieked, "what are you doing? The contamination protocols are insufficient," she interrupted calmly, pulling on what appeared to be a simple surgical mask and gloves. "Your suits restrict movement and limit patient contact. I need to perform physical examinations, listen to lung sounds, feel for temperature variations, check pupil responses. You will die." She smiled, and there was something in that expression that reminded me why humans were classified as a death world species. "Administrator, humans have been dealing with infectious diseases for thousands of years. Before we had your fancy force field sterilization and nanite filters, we used soap, alcohol, and these." She held up her simple mask. "Sometimes old methods work better than you think. This is completely against protocol. I cannot authorize." "Then don't authorize it. I'm going into that quarantine zone with or without your permission. You can document it as insubordination if that makes you feel better." And she walked toward the sealed doors of Section 7. Inside the zone, I followed her, of course. Someone had to document this madness for the inevitable inquiry. I kept my hazard suit on naturally. I wasn't suicidal. The scene inside Section 7 was nightmarish. 247 beings in various stages of illness, some conscious and moaning, others unconscious, breathing machines forcing oxygen into failing lungs. The air smelled of fear, disinfectant, and death. Dr. Chen moved through the rows of patients with calm efficiency. She stopped at each bed, performing examinations that seemed primitive compared to our advanced scanning equipment. She listened to chests with an old-fashioned stethoscope, checked eyes with a penlight, felt pulses with her bare fingers. "This patient," she said, stopping at the bed of a young Voltari female. "How long has she been symptomatic?" I checked the chart. 18 hours. Prognosis poor, expected organ failure within 6 hours. Dr. Chen was quiet for a moment, studying the patient. Then she did something that made several of my observers gasp in shock. She took the Voltari's hand. Not with gloved fingers at a safe distance, she held the dying alien's hand in both of hers, skin-to-skin contact, and spoke softly. "Hey there. I know you're scared. I know you hurt. But I'm going to help you, okay? Just hold on a little longer." The Voltari's eyes focused weakly on Dr. Chen's face. She made a sound. Relief, maybe, or just acknowledgement that someone was there, someone who cared. The pattern. Dr. Chen examined 70 patients in 4 hours. By the end, she was covered in sweat, her simple clothes stained with various biological fluids. That flimsy mask the only thing between her and almost certain infection. Then she pulled me aside. "I know what this is," she said. "Impossible. We have run every test. You've been testing for the wrong thing. This isn't a virus or bacteria. It's fungal." I stared at her. Fungal infections do not cause multi-system failure at this speed. Earth fungal infections don't, but I've seen something similar before. There's a parasitic fungus on Earth called cordyceps that infects insects, takes over their nervous system. This is similar, but evolved to target higher-order life forms. She pulled up a microscopic image on her terminal. "See these structures in the lung tissue? You cataloged in the cellular debris. They're spores. The fungus releases them into the respiratory system, where they germinate and spread throughout the body. The solution. If you are correct," I said slowly, "then all our antiviral treatments were useless. We were fighting the wrong enemy." "Exactly. But the good news is that fungal infections respond to different treatments. We need to hit this with heavy antifungal agents, probably a combination therapy. And we need to address the immune response. The fungus is triggering a cascade reaction that's causing as much damage as the infection itself. We do not have fungal protocols in our emergency medical supplies. It would take days to manufacture." "I brought supplies," Dr. Chen interrupted. "Earth deals with fungal infections regularly. I had a feeling standard galactic medicine might not cover all the bases." Over the next hour, she outlined a treatment plan. Aggressive antifungal medication, corticosteroids to calm the immune response, oxygen support, and something she insisted on that seemed completely unscientific: opening windows. "Fresh air?" I questioned. "How does that help?" "Fungal spores thrive in enclosed, humid environments. Moving air disrupts their ability to spread. It's basic biology." The first patients. We started treatment on the critical patients first. Dr. Chen administered the medications personally, adjusting dosages based on species physiology. She worked for 36 hours straight, moving from patient to patient, monitoring responses, fine-tuning her approach. And incredibly, impossibly, patients started improving. The young Voltari female who had been hours from death began breathing easier. A Greshkin male who had been unconscious for 2 days opened his eyes. An elderly Nexian couple who we had written off as terminal sat up and asked for water. "It is working," I whispered, watching the vital signs stabilize across the board. "Your treatment is actually working." Dr. Chen looked up from her patient charts and I saw exhaustion written across her features. But she smiled. "Of course it's working. We humans have been fighting infections for millions of years. We're really good at it." The question no one asked. That night, as patient after patient moved from critical to stable condition, I found Dr. Chen sitting alone in the observation room. She had finally put on a clean shirt, though she still wore just that simple mask. "Dr. Chen," I said carefully, "may I ask you something?" "Sure." "You have been in direct contact with infected patients for over 40 hours. You have breathed the same air, touched contaminated surfaces, been exposed to countless spores. By our calculations, you should be symptomatic by now. Why are you not sick? She was quiet for a moment. Then she pulled down her mask and smiled. Administrator, humans evolved on Earth. Do you know what Earth is like? A Class 12 death world. Extreme weather, aggressive fauna, high gravity, toxic to most galactic species. And absolutely teeming with fungi. Thousands of species, moles, yeasts, parasitic fungi that try to infect everything from insects to mammals. Humans have been exposed to fungal spores every day of our evolutionary history. She held up her hand. Our immune systems are trained to fight fungal infections from birth. We carry trillions of beneficial microorganisms that compete with harmful fungi. Our body temperature is higher than most species, which inhibits fungal growth. We even exhale carbon dioxide at concentrations that suppress spore development. I understood then. You were never in danger. Oh, I was in some danger. Unknown alien fungus, after all. Could have been something my immune system couldn't handle. But the odds were good. She smiled again. Besides, those patients needed someone who could touch them, talk to them, remind them they weren't alone. Medicine isn't just about protocols and treatments, Administrator. Sometimes it's about being human. The dawn. By dawn, we had 0 critical patients. The mortality rate had dropped to 0. Every infected being was recovering, some faster than others, but all improving. Dr. Chen's treatment had saved them all. I found her in the quarantine zone one last time before she left. She was sitting beside the young Boltari female, who is now conscious and talking with her family through the communication system. You broke every protocol, I said. You disregarded safety procedures. You risked your life unnecessarily. I know. I should report you to the medical review board. I know. But I will not, because you did something more important than following protocol. You saved 247 lives. Dr. Chen stood up, stretching tired muscles. That's the job, Administrator. No, I said quietly. That is what humans do. You see a problem, and you fix it, regardless of rules or risks or what anyone else thinks is possible. She smiled. We're a stubborn species. And in that moment, I understood why the galaxy both feared and admired humanity. They did not wait for permission. They did not hide behind protocols and procedures. When beings needed help, humans simply helped. Consequences be damned. The review board. 3 weeks after the outbreak, I stood before the Galactic Medical Council Review Board. 7 senior medical administrators from different species, all sitting in judgment of the incident at Meridian 5 and of Dr. Sarah Chen's actions. Administrator Zixthar, the head of the board, the stern Vortexian named Krell 9, began. We have reviewed your incident reports regarding the fungal outbreak. 247 patients infected, 0 fatalities after human intervention. Most unusual. Yes, honored board members. We also note that Dr. Sarah Chen, the human physician, violated no fewer than 17 major medical protocols during her treatment period. She removed required safety equipment. She made physical contact with infected patients. She administered non-standard treatments without proper authorization. She exposed herself to deadly pathogens with complete disregard for safety procedures. I said nothing. There was nothing to say. All of it was true. Krell 9 leaned forward, and yet she saved every single patient. How do you explain this? I cannot explain it, honored members. I can only report what I witnessed. Dr. Chen identified a pathogen that our most advanced systems missed. She implemented treatment protocols that worked when ours failed. She risked her life to save beings she had never met from species she had barely studied. She broke protocol. She saved lives. The board members murmured among themselves. Finally, Krell 9 spoke again. Administrator Zixthar, do you believe Dr. Chen's actions should be commended or condemned? I thought about that question for a long moment, about the rules we had built over centuries, about the procedures designed to keep everyone safe, about the 247 beings who would have died if those procedures had been followed. I believe, I said carefully, that Dr. Chen showed us something important. Our protocols are designed to protect medical staff from harm. They are good protocols. They save lives. But sometimes saving lives requires more than following rules. Sometimes it requires courage, intuition, and a willingness to take risks that make others uncomfortable. That is a dangerous philosophy. Perhaps, but it is a human philosophy. And in this case, it was the right one. The human medical philosophy. That evening, I received a message from Dr. Chen. She was back on Earth, having been recalled for her own review process with the United Earth Medical Corps. "Hey, Administrator," her message began. "I heard you had to testify about the outbreak. Hope I didn't get you in too much trouble. I wanted to explain something about human medicine that might help you understand why I did what I did." Her image appeared on my screen, sitting in what looked like a simple apartment. Behind her, I could see bookshelves filled with old-fashioned paper books. "Human medicine has a long history," she continued. "For thousands of years before we had advanced technology, we had to rely on observation, touch, and instinct. Doctors would examine patients with their hands, listen to heartbeats with their ears pressed against chests, taste medicines to understand their properties." She smiled. "I know that sounds primitive to galactic standards, but that hands-on approach taught us something important. Medicine isn't just about data and scans and sterile procedures. It's about connection, understanding, empathy. There's a phrase in human medicine, first, do no harm, but there's an older phrase from a human physician named Albert Schweitzer. He said, the purpose of human life is to serve and to show compassion and the will to help others." Dr. Chen leaned closer to the camera. "That's why I took off the hazard suit, Administrator. Not because I'm reckless or because I don't value my life, but because those patients needed more than sterile protocols. They needed to see a face, feel a hand, know that someone cared enough to take a risk for them. That's what humans do. We don't always follow the rules. We don't always take the safe path, but we always try to help, even when it's dangerous, even when it's foolish, even when everyone tells us it's impossible." The message ended, and I sat in silence for a long time. The new protocol. 2 months later, the Galactic Medical Council announced a new addition to standard medical training. It was called the Chen Protocol, though Dr. Chen herself insisted it should be called something else. The protocol was simple. In cases where standard procedures were failing, where patients were dying despite best efforts, medical staff were now authorized to use discretionary judgment, to try unconventional approaches, to take calculated risks, to be in their own way a little bit human. It was not the blanket authorization to ignore safety rules. There were still guidelines, still review processes, still consequences for genuine recklessness. But it acknowledged something that the galaxy had been slow to accept. Sometimes the right answer was not in the medical database. Sometimes it required something more: intuition, experience, and the courage to act when others hesitated. The student. 6 months after the outbreak, I received an unexpected visitor. A young Voltari female, barely into adulthood, stood in my office doorway. "Administrator Zixfar, my name is Valana. I was patient 0 in the outbreak." I recognized her immediately. The young female whose hand Dr. Chen had held, who had been hours from death when the human doctor arrived. "Valana, it is good to see you recovered. How can I help you?" "I want to study medicine," she said simply. "I want to learn to help people the way Dr. Chen helped me." I felt something shift in my understanding. "You wish to study human medical techniques?" "I wish to study medicine like a human," she corrected. "Dr. Chen told me something when I was sick. She said that medicine is about more than curing disease. It's about caring for beings when they're at their most vulnerable, giving them hope when they have none, being brave enough to try when everyone else has given up." Villana stepped forward, her eyes bright with determination. "I want to be that kind of doctor, the kind who doesn't just follow protocols, the kind who remembers that patients are people, not just cases to be managed." The program. Villana was not alone. Over the next year, 73 medical students from across the galaxy applied for a new program we created at Meridian 5. We called it the Integrated Medical Response Training, though everyone knew it by another name: the Human Doctor Program. We brought in human physicians as instructors. Dr. Chen returned to teach several courses. They showed galactic medical students the techniques humans had developed over millennia: how to perform physical examinations, how to recognize subtle symptoms that scanners may miss, how to communicate with frightened patients. But more importantly, they taught something that could not be found in any database. They taught courage, compassion, the willingness to take risks for others. They taught students how to be healers, not just technicians. The philosophy spreads. Within 2 years, similar programs appeared at medical stations across the galaxy. Human medical advisors were requested by dozens of systems. The Chen protocol was invoked in hundreds of cases, saving lives that would have been lost to rigid adherence to standard procedures. Not everyone was happy about this development. There were medical administrators who insisted that protocols existed for good reasons, that encouraging doctors to take risks would lead to disaster. They were not entirely wrong. There were cases where doctors took unnecessary risks and got sick. There were situations where unconventional approaches failed. But for every failure, there were 10 successes. For every doctor who got sick breaking protocol, there were 100 patients who lived because someone dared to try something different. The galaxy was learning what humans had always known. Rules and protocols were important, but they could not cover every situation. Sometimes the right choice was the one that broke all the rules. The return. 3 years after the outbreak, Dr. Chen returned to Meridian 5 for a symposium on infectious disease response. She had been promoted to Chief Medical Officer of the UENC's Rapid Response Division and had led interventions on 17 different worlds. She had saved thousands of lives. I met her at the docking bay, noting how little she had changed. Still small by most species standards. Still wearing that same tired but sharp expression. Still carrying a medical bag that probably contained more practical supplies than our entire emergency stockpile. Administrator Zixthar, she said, gripping my manipulator appendage in that firm human handshake. It's good to see you again. Dr. Chen, or should I say Chief Medical Officer Chen. She laughed. Sarah is fine. We're old friends now. We walked through the station together and I showed her the changes her visit had inspired. The new medical training center. The expanded infectious disease wing, the memorial wall, listing the 247 beings who had survived the outbreak. She stopped at that wall for a long time, running her fingers over the names. They're all alive, I said quietly, because you refused to follow protocol. They're all alive because we worked together, she corrected. You gave me the freedom to try something different. Your medical staff implemented treatments they had never seen before. The patients themselves fought to survive. I just provided a different perspective. You provided hope, the legacy. That night, Dr. Chen gave a lecture to a packed auditorium. Medical students, administrators, physicians from 100 different species, all came to hear the human doctor who had changed galactic medicine. She spoke about the outbreak, about fungal infections, about the importance of considering all possibilities. But mostly, she spoke about something else. Medicine is not just science, she told the audience. It's art. It's intuition. It's compassion. Every patient is different. Every disease presents unique challenges. You cannot simply follow a flowchart and expect optimal results. She looked around the room, making eye contact with as many beings as she could. I know some of you think humans are reckless, that we take too many risks, that we don't respect proper procedures. Maybe that's true. But I want you to understand something about humanity. We come from a world that tried to kill us every single day. Predators, diseases, natural disasters, our own violent nature. We survived by being stubborn, by refusing to give up, by taking risks when we had to. That's not recklessness. That's determination. And that determination is why we explore the stars, why we reach out to other species, why we always try to help when someone needs it. She smiled. So yes, I broke protocol at this station 3 years ago. I would do it again tomorrow without hesitation, because 247 beings needed help, and I could provide it. That's what medicine is about. That's what being human is about. The applause that followed was deafening. The question. After the lecture, Velana approached Dr. Chen. The young Voltari was now in her 2nd year of medical training and excelling in her studies. Dr. Chen, she said, may I ask you something? Of course. Were you scared when you removed your protective suit and entered the quarantine zone? Dr. Chen was quiet for a moment. Then she smiled. I was terrified, she admitted. I knew the risks, knew I could die. But I also knew that if I didn't try, all those patients would definitely die. So the choice was simple, really. How do you learn to be that brave? You don't learn it. Dr. Chen said gently. You just decide that some things are more important than fear. Helping others, saving lives, making a difference. Once you know what you're fighting for, courage becomes easier. The future. 5 years after the outbreak, Meridian 5 became the premier medical research station in the sector. Our reputation for innovative approaches and successful interventions attracted the best minds from across the galaxy. Villana graduated top of her class and chose to stay at Meridian 5 as a resident physician. She specialized in infectious diseases and developed treatments for 3 previously incurable conditions. When I asked her what inspired her work, she showed me something she kept in her office: a simple surgical mask and a pair of worn gloves. Dr. Chen gave these to me, she explained. She said they were her reminders that the best medicine is not always the most advanced technology. Sometimes it's just courage, compassion, and the willingness to help. The truth. Today, I teach courses in medical administration to students who barely remember the outbreak. They study the Chen protocol as standard procedure, not as a revolutionary concept. They learn from human instructors who seem perfectly ordinary, not like the daring pioneers they truly are. But I remember. I remember the day a small human doctor walked into my quarantine zone and changed everything. I remember watching her take off her protective suit and knowing I was witnessing something extraordinary. I remember learning that sometimes the most advanced medicine in the galaxy is simply the courage to care. The message. Dr. Sarah Chen continues her work with the United Earth Medical Corps. She has trained thousands of physicians, saved tens of thousands of lives, changed the way the entire galaxy approaches medicine. But she still carries that old medical bag with basic supplies, still wears simple masks instead of advanced protective gear when the situation allows it, still stops to hold patients' hands and remind them they are not alone, because that is what humans do. They see beings who need help and they help them. They face impossible challenges and refuse to give up. They break rules if necessary and create new ones when the old ones fail. They are stubborn, reckless, compassionate, and absolutely terrifying in their determination to make things better. And the galaxy is safer, healthier, and more hopeful because of it. The final lesson. Last week, I received one more message from Dr. Chen. She's retiring from active fieldwork, taking a position teaching at Earth's Global Medical Academy. I wanted to thank you, her message said, for trusting me when I broke protocol, for defending my actions to the review board, for helping create a medical system that values courage as much as caution. But mostly, I wanted to thank you for learning the most important lesson about human medicine. It's not about our technology or our techniques, or our stubborn refusal to give up. It's about remembering that every patient is someone's daughter, son, parent, friend. Every life matters. Every being deserves someone who will fight for them, even when the odds seem impossible. That's not just human medicine. That's what medicine should be. And I'm grateful that you helped spread that philosophy across the galaxy. The message ended with a simple phrase. Keep fighting the good fight, Administrator. Keep saving lives. Keep being brave. And I will, because a human doctor once showed me that the greatest protocol of all is simply this: care enough to try, even when success seems impossible. That is the legacy of Dr. Sarah Chen. That is the gift humanity gave the galaxy. And that is why, when my students ask me what it means to be a good doctor, I tell them this story. The story of a human who broke every rule and saved every life. The story that changed everything.